Every day, you act as a semiotician, decoding and encoding everything around you to navigate life physically as well as mentally. When you say something,
You little bitch! You little
Linda?
bitch!
write something down,
Is it me? Or does that look like a gun sight?
watch something, make a hand motion,
I've seen finger gestures from such a pristine girl.
I'm not that pristine.
or just listening to someone speak,
Can't believe you asked Ramona out after I specifically told you not to do that.
How are you doing that with your mouth?
you are using signs to understand the world and help the world understand you. I have always been fascinated by the simple yet faithful fact that millions of drivers universally decide to adhere to white painted lines on asphalt. Of course, there are laws and most people are decent human beings. Nevertheless, the idea that a white strip of paint repels chaos as drivers consent to its meaning is fascinating. Studying the production of such meaning is known as semiotics, and it refers to any sign or symbol that can be communicated through one of the five senses. Anytime you smell a skunk, it's a sign one is nearby.
Fire in the hole!
Anytime you use a map, a compass is a symbol for direction. Anytime you hear a police siren, you know to be alert.
Hey man, I think I saw that kid you were Hey!
Every day, we are unconsciously decoding the world's signs, making us all undercover semioticians. Differing from the other arts, film is one of the most advanced forms of art as it uses not only visual imagery, the very essence of art, but sound as well. Photography already allowed artists to replicate real people and things through a visual medium, but film gave them motion, a quality of reality needed to sell itself. Filmmakers are able to easily and quickly communicate a variety of topics, themes, and ideas using semiotics. A filmmaker will encode subjective meaning into their artwork, using visual and audible means, to be decoded subjectively by an audience. Both the communicator and receiver are encoding and decoding the same film, but may take away different meanings.
Well, it's very comfortable just to drift here.
A film viewer not picking up on the idea a filmmaker has put into their film is not an error on their part, but the amazing result of semiotics. When a viewer does pick up on the inferred meanings of a film, the result is a shared collective of understanding amongst viewers and creators. Semiotics is explicitly defined as the study of signs and symbols and their use or interpretation. Henry Stubb was the first to use the term in English in 1670, writing about interpreting signs and symptoms in medical science. 2 decades later, John Locke would use it as a category in his description and divide of medicine. American philosopher Charles Sanders Peirce defined semiotics as the quasi-necessary or formal doctrine of signs, always entailing 3 variables: the sign, its meaning, and its interpretation. In the 20th century, Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure proposed the concept of a sign with 2 sides: the sign itself and its meaning, the linguistic version of cause and symptom. More recently and more plainly, Italian semiotician Umberto Eco states that semiotics is more than just signs. It's symbols, characters, signals, or anything which stands for something else. Within semiotics, there are 3 branches: semantics, syntactics, and pragmatics. Semantics describes how a sign relates to the concept it refers to. Syntactics deals with signs' formal properties, such as kinds of signs and their relation to one another. Pragmatics is the relationship between signs and the effect that they have, whether intended or not. There needs to be an understanding between a sign and its receiver for semiotics to work. A code must be shared by the sender and receiver of messages for signification to occur. Returning to the analogy of highway lanes painted lines, the law that states drivers must remain safely in their lane is the code that the majority of people agree to follow out of mutual convenience. Without this shared knowledge and understanding, the road's culture would be non-existent, and one couldn't trust the other drivers around them. In semiotics, this code is what is used to cue the audience into the more metaphorical meanings at play. One example of a code is how the understanding and knowledge of the Bible and Jesus Christ is used in a variety of media to instill similar themes. There are multiple types of signs and interpretations of semiotics, depending on the semiotician. Ferdinand de Saussure preferred his dual-sided praxis, while Charles Sanders Peirce adopted a system that divided semiotics into 3 subtypes. Both Saussure and Peirce interpret the structure of signs, the kinds of signs that there are, and how they relate to one another. The signifier refers to the image or forms the sign takes, while the signified is the idea it represents. Together, the signifier and the signified make up the 2 sides of a sign. Contemporary semioticians suggest the signifier is more likely a physical representation of a sign, and the signified is the mental concept behind it. Peirce came up with 3 classifications for signs, the first being an icon. An icon is a visual resemblance to the thing being signified. As an example, here is an image of Daniel Radcliffe. The second classification, an index, is a visual representation of what is being signified. Here we have a pair of glasses and a lightning bolt scar. The last classification is a symbol. A symbol does not have an explicit connection between the signifier and the signified. Instead, the connection must be learned or adopted through culture. Here we have the written name Harry Potter. The connection, or code, used to understand this name and its meaning is the English alphabet. The code used to understand these 3 signs is the books, films, and world of Harry Potter. Applying Saussure's 2-sided model, we can infer that the signifier, or the physical representation of a sign, is denotative, that is, literal. Continuing, we can say that the signified, or mental concept, of a sign is connotative, or figurative. Signs can be combined, rearranged, or exchanged to create relationships that represent new signifieds, just like how the words in a sentence can be changed to mean something new. Each word or sign would be referred to as a syntam. In this process, signs become a linguistic unit, able to be strung together to formulate different relationships. Paradigmatic relationships refer to the substitution of signs, while syntagmatic relationships refer to signs positioning in a sequence. This can be explained by taking a look at the sentence, "Jurassic Park is a good movie." Each word, or syntam, can be changed for a term similar to itself, a paradigm. Good can be exchanged for fine, great, exceptional, or fantastic. Movie can be exchanged for film, motion picture, talkie, or feature. Each word may be different, but the sentence means the general same. To explore semiotics further, we will survey its application to film, specifically Fritz Lang's 1931 thriller, M. We can easily apply semiotics to the study of cinematic arts because shots of a film can comfortably substitute for syntams or signs in a narrative relationship. Each progressing scene or film shot is one in a series that tells a story visually and audibly. Each scene or shot is heavily diffused with connotative meaning, created through denotative means of versification, composition, tropes, framing, camera movements, and light effects. The combination of these physical filmmaking techniques creates a response or reading from the audience. To understand the reception of the audience, we must first understand how we get there. Stuart Hall has outlined a fantastic model to help us understand how messages are encoded by filmmakers as signs and are decoded by the audience through their subjective inference. Filmmaking begins like any other endeavor, with the industry's technical infrastructure and the ability to create, process, and distribute film, or the relations of production. Once films were being made on a general basis, filmmakers acquired knowledge frameworks, the standard process on how to make films. The filmmakers would then instill their meaning structures into the film itself. These are each filmmaker's understanding of the project being created. The film, comprised of its many syntagmatic shots and scenes, is now encoded with meaning and viewed or distributed as discourse. Receivers of this filmic message will receive the medium with their own meaning structures, decoding the messages they perceive. The receiver's framework of knowledge, relations of production, and technical infrastructure represent the shared understanding or code used to view the film and comprehend its content. According to Hall, once a film viewer receives the perceived messages from the medium, The receiver then responds with one of three readings. A preferred reading means the receiver inferred the intended message with complete agreement. A negotiated reading means the receiver inferred some of the intended messages but made adaptations to fit their preferences. An oppositional reading means the receiver failed to infer the intended messages and perhaps even creates opposition to fight against the film's perceived message. With these variable outcomes, multiple meanings are derived from multiple receivers. The film M is renowned by many as one of the greatest films of all time and has become influential for good reason. Centering on a citywide search for a serial killer of children, M would be Fritz Lang's first synchronous sound film. Starring Peter Lorre as the serial killer Hans Beckert, the film manages to terrify audiences without violence or cheap scares, but instead by using the power of semiotics. Fritz Lang favored injecting moral ambiguity into his films, as well as paranoia and dread. The scariest thing to an audience is what they aren't shown, forcing their imaginations to fill in the blanks. Lang exploits this fact by not showing any of the violence his killer is being hunted for. Instead, Lang preys on the fear of a mother waiting for her daughter to come home, or the constant terror that anyone on the streets could be a murderer. Lang encodes these messages knowing that they will strike a chord with receivers, no matter how they decode the film's syntagmatic narrative. One of the most potent encoded messages Lang uses is the repeated leitmotif of In the Hall of the Mountain King from Edvard Grieg's Peer Gynt. The tune is whistled by Lorre's killer whenever he is near, unseen but whose presence is always felt. Lang plays again with what the receiver cannot see, or decode, and attacks the auditory system to incite fear. The song acts as a sign that the killer could strike at any moment, and has been untouchable thus far.
Dankeschön. Na no, das habe ich doch schon mal gehört. Das war doch.
There are many intelligent uses of semiotics in M that Lang uses, especially with sound, that are quite impressive considering this is his first speaking film. The receiver is continuously aware of doorbells rung, horns beeping, mothers calling out for their daughters,
Elsie! Elsie!
and a whistling killer so that they feel a constant connotative feeling of terror. Additionally, having considerable experience directing silent films, Lang is skillful in creating compelling visual messages from a killer's silhouette,
Du hast aber einen schönen Ball.
the mark of a beast, to the pain of an orphaned playground ball and balloon. The sequencing of these signs links to the film's ideology, which is moral ambiguity and paranoia. If the film's message is convincing enough, the receiver will respond with a preferred reading, and Fritz Lang will have claimed yet another victim by the end of the mourning mother's plea, a sign to all to pay closer attention.
Auf die Kinder Acht geben! Ihr